So now that we've designed the 8-week plan and the 2 program cards, we now need to complete a program evaluation. So it's at the end of week 4, we need to complete this following sheet. And we just answer all questions honestly. So, has your client managed to stick to the program? So in this case, yes, David has managed to complete all of the sessions. What feedback have you received from your client in relation to the program? The supersets are enjoyable. The forced repetitions brought about some delayed onset muscle soreness. So that just means that after a couple of days, David was really feeling the burn or tenderness in the muscle groups that we did forced repetitions on. That's not unusual. David has really enjoyed the coaching of exercise technique. So remember, as a personal trainer, your job is to coach accurate exercise technique to make sure that the client is performing a safe exercise, but also that it's effective. We need to be pushing the clients to overload. How is your client progressing towards the agreed physical and nutritional goals? So here, David has managed to remove sugar from his coffee. Well, that was the short-term nutrition goal. This is great. We found that David's water consumption has naturally risen as a result of more intense training, and small increase in measurements have coincided with the program. So we know that we're on track to achieve the overall goals, because this has happened at the end of week 4, and the goals really for physical fitness were set to 6 weeks, if you remember rightly. Are there any aspects of the program that I would need to modify or revise? At this stage, no, but we will continue to evaluate performance and results. What modifications do I intend to make? Now, because I've written down an 8-week plan, I can go back to my 8-week plan, and you can actually see the modifications that I plan to make in week 5, in week 6 when I go back to a deload week, and in week 7. So that's why it's so important to write out an actual 8-week plan. So eventually we'll change the exercises or the training systems to promote a new stimulus, so overload, to the program. So you know that I've already taken it from supersets to forced reps, but I'm going to take it from forced reps to eccentric training and then eventually to pyramid training. This is now your marking criteria that your assessor will use to mark your 8-week plan. Firstly, you have to achieve the minimum marks in each section. So if you've completed a client assessment form, like I shown you earlier in the video, then you're going to get that 1 mark. As long as you've identified the client's goals, you get the 1 mark. Identify the client's preferences to exercise, 1 mark. Current eating patterns, 1 mark. Current exercise quota, 1 mark. A fully completed PAR-Q, 1 mark. And a minimum of 2 physical measurements, 2 marks. And you need to get all 8 marks to pass that section. Goal setting. Now, you'll see here that you need to again get all 12 marks, which is why we focus so much on the goal setting and make sure that we've laid it out S, M, A, R and T. Firstly, we need to talk about the client's attitude and motivation to exercise. Current barriers to exercise. Recommendations of how to overcome those barriers. It's really important that you focus on identifying a barrier and removing it, because we do need to achieve these minimum marks here. The state of change. So we have to name that state of change. Pre-contemplation. contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, termination, and relapse. We need to state why we think that client is at that particular state of change. We need to have list physical goals that are specific. We need to list nutritional goals that are specific. So we need a start and an end point. We need to list goals that tell the assessor how they're going to be measured, but also to tell the client how they're going to be measured. We need to list goals that are achievable, but that are really agreed with the client. We need to list goals that are realistic. And if they're realistic, they will be achievable. So at that stage, refer to the Food Standards Agency for Nutrition or the ACSM, the American College of Sports Medicine, for fitness goals. And they're indicated on the documents we've given you. We need to make sure the goals are time-bound. And we need to state the healthy eating advice that we're giving to the client. If you've missed out one section here, your assessor cannot pass that work. They may ask you a question to clarify what you mean and therefore issue the mark verbally, but they can only do that with a written statement which must be signed and validated by you and them. Now, the programming section. Here, there's a little bit more scope for error. So, you need to provide a detailed overview of the 8-week plan. So that's the predictive progressive overview where you're telling us what you're doing in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and finally 8. We strongly recommend that you use the 8-week plan template that we provide you with to just further supplement your 8-week plan, which helps you to check that you're going for full marks in the case study. You need to provide 2 program cards. You must give us 2 program cards. You need to have a suitable warm-up for each program card, and you need to get that mark there. The first 2 parts of criteria, there's scope for a small amount of error. You must use a variety of CV equipment, so you must use more than one piece of CV kit or the case study will not get the minimum mark it needs. You must also show us 2 advanced CV approaches. You must use a variety of resistance machines, so a minimum of 2 resistance machines will get you 1 mark. As long as you've got more than 3 resistance machines across your 2 program cards, you'll get the full 2 marks. The same applies for free weights. You must use a minimum of 2 free weight exercises. You must demonstrate on 2 program cards 4 resistance training approaches. If they don't appear on your 2 program cards, your program cards cannot be passed. They should also appear on your overview of your 8-week plan. The same applies for your 2 cardiovascular training systems. You must have 2 different cardiovascular training systems on your program cards. They must also appear in your overview of your 8-week plan. You must provide at least 1 core stability exercise on each program card, and it must also be present on your 8-week plan. You need to make sure that you've got the appropriate timings and sequences of exercises correct on your program cards. So that means you need to have the time for the cardiovascular training system. You need to have a logical order of exercises for your resistance training approaches. So if it's supersets, you need to make sure that you're doing opposing muscle groups. You need to make sure that you've got the rest period in the right place, that you've got the number of sets and reps correct. If you're doing something along the lines of a post-exhaust, you need to make sure to get the sequences right, that you've got your compound exercise first and your isolation exercise after. if you're doing pyramid training, you need to make sure that you've got the right number of sets for the reps and that you've got an appropriate rest period after each set. You need to have appropriate cooldowns for your program cards. You need to provide appropriate stretches for those program cards. You must also complete the evaluation form at the end of the 4 weeks. So that's what was at the start of this short video. And you need to make appropriate modifications to the program. You must score 23 out of 28 to pass, but you must also score the minimum marks for each criteria. Your assessor will write detailed feedback of why they've passed your work and where you need to have improvements on your work. They may also write over your program cards in a red pen indicating where there are shortfalls in the program or where your programs can be made better.